Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. I wanted to take this time to talk a little more about our senses. As I had mentioned previously, I have written a book called the Sensory Compounding Workbook, and in this workbook, I outline in more detail all of your five senses and how you can actually use them to create a place of inner peace and calm. But I thought today I'd spend just a few minutes talking about the five senses. So, of course, as you know, when we talk about the five senses, we're talking about hearing, taste, sight, smell, and touch. And one of the questions that I want to be able to answer for you is, what do our senses do for us? Well, actually, our senses connect us to the world. And what I mean by that is that each sense organ takes in physical information from the environment, and then it sends it to the brain for processing. So, how this works is very, very complex. And in terms of describing it in my book, I don't go into a lot of detail about chemistry or physiology. It's more in the aspect of a user-friendly educational book on teaching you how to use your senses. One of the things in my book I talk about is that senses are physical and senses are more than physical. And what I mean when I say that senses are physical is that I'm talking about what our senses are taking in around us. So when you really think about it, our senses are taking in vibrations, they're taking in light waves, they're taking in chemicals. And by taking in all of this sensory information, it can do such things as maybe warn us about what to eat or not to eat, or encourage us what to eat and not to eat. Or it can warn us about, let's say, if we're walking down a path at night and all of a sudden we hear rustling in the bushes. That is taken in, that sensory information is taken in, and in some cases our fight or flight will kick in, and then we realize that, wow, this is a situation where I need to get out of here, and then you can leave. So your senses are very important to us. So when I say that senses are more than physical, what I'm talking about there is emotion, memory, and thinking. And when we think about the whole aspect of senses, we look at such things as, let's say, for example, I'll give you an example of within my practice as a psychologist, we talk about conditioning and learning, and that's when I'm talking about sensory compounding. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So let's say, for example, I have a client come into my private practice, and they are going through a very, very difficult breakup. And one of the things that they've talked about was they absolutely hate Thanksgiving, because that's the time when this breakup happened. And when we explored a little more about why do you hate Thanksgiving so much, the client then talks about how that smell of the turkey actually triggers the response of sadness and feelings of being upset and angry, and all of those feelings combined together because of the breakup. So that's what I'm talking about when senses are more than physical, because there's the emotion, the memory, and the thinking that are attached to it. So how can we use experiences like that, sometimes difficult experiences, where the memories have triggered different things? How can we switch the perspective and be able to use our senses in a way that can actually impact us positively that can impact us in a way where we can create that inner calm and alignment within ourselves. And that's what the Sensory Compounding Workbook does. In the workbook, when I highlight sensory compounding, I'm talking about associations. What I mean by that is that associations to a memory, an event, and what's elicited in terms of that sensory response. And I know it might sound a little bit complicated here as I'm trying to explain it, but the Sensory Compounding Workbook does a beautiful job in terms of explaining that in a way that is very, very easy to understand and very easy to use. And it takes you step by step through each of the senses and then pulls in the sensory compounding aspect where you're able to teach yourself how to ground. You teach yourself how to be able to use your senses in a way that's creating a calm and peaceful response in a sometimes challenging and difficult situation that you may find yourself in. So I wanted to provide just a brief overview in terms of the senses, what I'm looking at, and how I'm trying to explain that in the workbook. And I hope that this has given you just a bit more perspective in terms of what I'm offering for a workbook. What I'm going to be doing as well is releasing another video on how you can use your senses to be able to deal with grief and loss. And I'm also looking at releasing a few more videos in terms of different sensory meditations. So I hope that you'll be able to enjoy those. So please like and subscribe my YouTube channel so that you can get the notifications for any new videos that come up. I also have an Instagram account, the Sensory Compounding Workbook, where I do provide daily inspirational messages. So please connect and follow through Instagram. And through my YouTube, if you have any questions, you can certainly leave a question there or comment. And I really appreciate your time today. So take care and be well, and we will connect again in the future. Okay, bye-bye.